Shields? How about Northwood?
No.
I expected that. He lived right behind the church. Preston Oaks. Preston Oaks. Moving over on my side of Parmer Lane. Any Walnut crossing? Got a Walnut Lane? Well, didn't see it. Millwood. Home team. Let's jump across the tracks there. Anybody, some Angus Valley people, and they're not directly on Parmer Lane. We have a couple of those. And I think we were able to reach out to, and forgive me, is it Virginia Creek? Is it Virginia Creek folks? Okay, so this is actually a well-targeted group. It isn't really intended when you get into Q&A to take a lot of questions from South Austin. The purpose of this meeting is to learn from one another, to find out something about the code, to be aware, to ask some questions. My objective, if I'm successful, and the folks that are here to help me are successful, when you leave here, I hope you know one or two things you didn't know when you walked in. Hopefully it'll be a little bit more than that. But codes are complex. They are going to affect virtually every residential property in the city, and it's incumbent upon those who can share information to try and get some of that information out. I want you to be aware of this process. I've lived in Millwood for 35 years. I've been politically active for a long time. And Code Next was abandoned last year, but it was a process that went on for years. And there was enough press time that a lot of people heard the word Code Next. When I asked them what it was, very few people had any clue. This particular process that we're undertaking now is so time compressed that I have asked probably 100 people, are you aware of this process? Maybe 3 said yes. And those 3 had no clue what it was about. So I felt it very important to try and schedule this meeting as quickly as possible to get some information out, because there isn't a lot of time remaining for you to contact the council, the planning commission, the city staff, and offer some input on what you would like to see in this code. One of the things that just to kind of bare my soul a little bit here, and I know there's other people that are very active in local issues, it's very frustrating to me, is all too often when these major projects come down the road, we have the convention center coming up, and the soccer stadium, and the homelessness issue, we have this land development code rewrite, is that the information that the city puts on its website has this much information on the benefits, and this much information on the cost. What are the consequences? What are the costs? You either don't hear about that or it's glossed over, and it's really important that you have some balance here. Just listen to both sides of the story. Let me give you a rundown of what the schedule for the evening basically looks like. In a moment, I'll introduce the folks that are here. We have a couple more that maybe you're a little bit late. I'll introduce them. I'll introduce them in a moment. We're going to screen the video zoned out. And I don't know, let me do a quick show of hands. How many people have actually seen the video? Pretty fair number. Not everybody. The event was advertised by me and other people that got some emails out and screening the video. So I want to screen it anyway to refresh your memory of what's in it. And I think it serves as a good baseline. It reminds you of what's in it, and it generates some questions. I think it's helpful to see it again, because the question and answer period, I think, will probably relate back to or encompass answers that come out of that video, and certainly your own questions that may have nothing to do with the video. Let me introduce the 2 people that are here, tell you about a couple of others. Fred Lewis is an activist attorney. We've walked a few miles together on the projects that we agree on, which is frequently. He also is associated with and lead with community commodity. Barbara, you're an astrophysicist, is that correct? I think she's being modest. But Barbara has taken an enormous amount of time. She did it during COVID, she's doing it now, to drill down into the details, the down in the weeds, detailed intricacies of what goes into a code rewrite. And she is going to show us a little bit later, after the video, some maps for the neighborhoods along Parmer Lane. And she is the person that can answer a lot of questions. I want you to understand that the latest release of this current rewrite came out on Friday. I think it's 1,366 pages. Takes a little
That's
time.
the code.
It takes
Not included in that.
it takes a little time to digest that. So we're going to try to give you straight, honest answers to the best of our knowledge based on the information that we have and have been able to digest up to this point. Also, Michael Curry is going to try to join us. He's got another obligation downtown. He functions, he helps a lot like Parmer with a lot of the down in the weed details. He will likely be here. He's probably running.
He's a very, very competent attorney. He's now mediator.
He hopes to join us here shortly. There's one of my stars.
Come on up. Come on up.
Don't be shy. I'm about 30 seconds away from introducing.
No, you're right on time. This is Jim Duncan. You want to announce who he is?
Well, I'm going to jump ahead a couple of people here. And Jim, I'm taking just a moment to introduce you people that are here a little short later. I cannot do justice to your experience and your background. So you want to take 30 seconds and tell us?
Come here by myself.
I'll do it.
Okay, Fred, why don't you be Jim Stoll?
Okay. This is Jim Duncan. If Jim Duncan were writing the code, we would have a very small audience. Jim Duncan used to be head of the planning department for the city of Austin in the 80s. He has done planning in other cities. He has written a couple hundred codes, and he's been head of the American Planning Association. And we're very lucky to have him. And Austin is better off if we had someone like him.
Thank you very much. Last but not least, one of the speakers you'll hear in the zoned out video is Carmen Yones-Polito. She's one of my bright spots. I see her as a shining star for Austin for years to come. Very articulate. She's very active in a lot of issues affecting Central Austin, Southeast Austin, East Austin. She's been in the trenches. She's seen what the redevelopment of those areas has done to those areas. And she sits on the planning commission. And she so wanted to be here, she actually got a late conflict. And she sent me an email. I think she did it because she had internet service on the flight to Atlanta. I think I got the email. I think I got the email off of the plane. And she wanted to have some input. So she sent me this. I'm going to write it down. I have an idea what I'm going to read here. And kind of get to the gist of the thrust of the comments that she wanted to make. I'll read that a little bit later on. I'm going to put on my drill sergeant hat here for a moment. And I probably this isn't something I do to boost my fan club, which I don't have. We're here to be civil. We're here to be respectful. We're here to share information, hear what other people have to say. We're not here for outbursts. I don't want to referee a wrestling match. Everybody here is expected to be respectful of other people's opinions. I don't want interruptions. And one of the things I'm going to do, especially when we get to the Q&A, is if you have a question, ask the question. Try to keep it concise. We have enough people here, I expected this, and I'm going to try to give everybody that raises their hands one shot if we've got enough time. And so try to keep your questions short, be concise. You can ask me, you can make a comment. No rants, no personal attacks. If you do that, I'm going to ask you to leave. I'm just being straight up. And I want you to look at me, if at all possible. If you start to run on, I'm going to do this. I'm going to ask you to shorten it up and make your point. Okay, take the drill sergeant hat. I hope you don't Let me set up the video. I'm out of time. The zoned out video is a provocative video. It was intended to be a provocative video. It was produced at least about 6 weeks ago. So I want you to bear in mind that some of the concerns that are expressed, and some of the points that are made, are based on information that we have available from the city 5 or 6 weeks ago. So it's dated, things have changed. And this process, I get this question frequently, is not over. Don't think because the latest version came out on Friday, you don't have a chance for input. If you like it, I encourage you to call your council members, the planning commission, the mayor, and say, this is the hottest thing since sliced bread. If you don't like it, say, I have an issue with this, I have a question with this, I have a concern with this. Call the council, call the planning commission, call the mayor, say, I need information, I want an answer. I encourage your participation. And that's what this video is all about. To wake people up. I told you that everybody I've asked, with the exception of one or two people, have no idea this code rewrite is even taking place. So the video was intended to get your attention, to make you want to ask questions, to get you here tonight. So you can ask questions, you can look at some maps. It's intended to generate a response. And as I mentioned earlier, the city has a habit of presenting a lot of the benefits, very few of the costs, the drawbacks. And we see that with many examples. I've lived here 35 years. We have some periods of relative tranquility down at City Hall. Right now, we've got several pots boiling all at once. I think I mentioned the soccer stadium, we mentioned Senator Lewis, the homelessness issue. And I'm telling you what to think about the homelessness issue. In fact, I kind of lean toward the supportive humane treatment side. But the city council directed the city manager to develop some guidelines and suggestions on how to deal with that issue. Rather than wait for those to come back from the city manager, and without any consultation with the police department, the fire department, they said, no more camping ordinances. I'm not sure that's a well thought out program. I don't know that that's an appropriate approach to deal with a very complex issue. This is a complex issue. This rewrite is a complex issue, and it needs to be analyzed. Questions need to be asked. Support given if you feel it's supported. Concerns expressed if you have concerns. Like I said, I guess one thing I want to stress is this project is still a moving target. At the end of the meeting, I'm going to give you some dates for some meetings that you can attend. Please express your opinions. That's it. Are you ready? Michael Curry, I told you you'd be here. This is Michael Curry.
Great entrance.
But I'm going to jump in at this particular point, throw in a couple of things here. Might as well just mention that together. One, there are points in this video that are no longer valid. This video, as I said, was made 5 or 6 weeks ago. But I hope it stimulates questions about those points. If you don't think something's valid anymore, you have people who can answer that question. But this video had the intended purpose. The mayor, council member, city staff, planning commission have received thousands of emails and calls from people like you. Your input has taken some of the rough edge off of these concerns. So keep it up. Also, one of the things that you might interpret from this is that really the action here is all going to be downtown in East Austin. Well, I think it's reasonable to say that the most significant changes, most rapid changes will occur in those areas, but there are parts of the city that are unique because there's something special about them that will make them targets for redevelopment quickly. I don't think there's probably a person in the room here, I might make that wrong, who is unaware of the Apple complex that's going to be built just north of the McNeil Parmer intersection. 15,000 units. that is going to call attention to the homes along Parmer Lane, predominantly, I guess, from MoPac out to 620. That's the reason why I heard this meeting. If I thought this area was completely immune, so well, let's wait a little bit, let's see what happens with the next couple of revisions. I also, this is kind of specialized information, but I want to get this out now before Barbara gets into the specialized maps. I've been very busy putting this meeting together, but I have taken a little bit of time to look at bits and pieces of the code. And just yesterday, I looked at the maps that were released last Friday. And I looked at my neighborhood, Millwood. But it's very typical. What they've done there is extraordinarily typical of neighborhoods across the city, and in particular along Parmer Lane. And I'll just give you a real quick pattern, and then I'll turn it over to you for the maps. The lots that are going to be subject to the greatest increase in density in Millwood, this is typical of most of the neighborhoods, are the streets that feed Parmer Lane. I happen to live on Europa, Adelphi, and Gagnon. These are all streets in Millwood that feed traffic to Parmer Lane. I happen to live 4 lots off of Parmer Lane. And on each of those streets, going about 4 to 6 lots in, the property will be rezoned to what is called RM1. That's 6 units. My house can be knocked down and 6 units can be put on it. Then they transition about 4 or 5 more lots. Those lots will be classified as R4. 4 units, a 4-plex can go on those lots. We're talking lots that are 50 feet wide and 100 feet deep. That's not a big lot. Now, the rest of Millwood, and this is going to be true of most neighborhoods, you're living near Summit or someplace on the interior, and I got some cushion here. Every single lot in Millwood is going to be reclassified as an R2A. That's 2 units. That's potentially a duplex. So if you think, well, I'm not close to Parmer Lane, it won't affect me. Person living next to you sells their house, and a developer buys it. I'm going to knock it down and put a duplex up. So don't think that because you're not close to the corridor, you're not going to be affected. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to let Barbara bring back some specialty maps.
Specialty maps for the area. So this is from the city's website. This shows you the timeline. On 10/26, there's a planning commission meeting.
That's a Saturday.
And it would be very good for people to come. And then in mid-November, the council will have a public meeting, and they want to vote at the beginning of December. So this is a quick timeline. So this gives you an idea. So we just got the code. I'm trying to read it as fast as I can, and Michael's reading it and crossing it. So here's something else that Ed didn't mention. If you're in pink on this map, and I bet most of you are, and your house is 36 years old, then you can put an extra unit. So really, all of this, you have 3 units.
So how many people have a home that's 30 years old? So you can have 3 units.
Right.
Especially in the
Well, the floodplain's a different animal.
The floodplain is a different animal. So this impacts a whole lot of Boston, as you can see from this map. And so you keep the existing house, but you only have to keep 2 walls of it. So you're pretty free to do whatever you want with the structure that's there. And
Put
then,
up 3 units.
and have 3 units on it. So Ed went over this a little bit, but I'm going to raise your numbers. We're playing poker now because the numbers are higher. If you're closer to the corridor, you get 6 units by right, and you can have a 4-unit bonus for affordable housing.
I did read that. Thank you for bringing that up.
60% impervious cover, 40 feet tall. They're not residential house scale. They're high floor area ratio. That means the structure can be bigger than the lot by 20%. And you might think, well, that's a great idea. Now we're going to have 4 affordable units. I'll build my 6 units and we'll get 4 affordable units. But the thing is, They're saying it's a fee in lieu, it's some small fee. So if you want to take advantage of putting 10 units on a lot, you can pay a fee and do it. You really don't have to provide any affordable housing on site.
So let me make it clear. RN1, the land, the lots closest to the corridors, 2, 3 lots deep into it. 10 units can be built on it. And if you have 10,000 square feet, you can subdivide it and put 10 units on the code.
So if your lot's 10,000 square feet, it can just be divided, and right now, under state law, subdivision is something that you go to the city, and it's an administrative approval. It's no public notice anymore. And then the lower one is 4 + 4, 8 units, 50% impervious cover. There you can get 45 feet, so you can actually go taller. And once again, you pay a fee.
How many stories is 45 feet?
It can be 3 or 4 stories, depending on how you build. So this is the Parmer area. Everything that's orange on this map has been converted from existing single-family duplex zoning into one of the transition zones. And it's in different places. So here's one area that you can look at this.
Can you point out street names?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you get up and point them out there? There's no
Yeah, you
reason to
put
say
it on
that.
that because my eyes are in the stores.
Well, I would be a lot more familiar if you bring up the map that has no one on.
Well, we're going to do all
Okay,
that.
I'll do it.
Oh, the street.
Just the street names. We're just
Sitting there
showing
focusing
you.
on
MoPac, Burnett, and is this Parmer? Yes or no? It looks like that's Parmer.
Yes, it is.
And
Yeah.
this is metric. So here's metric,
That's
here's
basically the
MoPac,
Schofield
here's
area.
Parmer.
So that's a lot of conversion there. Remember, all of these are 4 to 6 units or 8 to 10 units. Here's another area. This little,
And what is this street?
this is, that's probably on the right.
Okay,
That's Parmer going across. And so they've
That's
gone-
Millwood.
Okay, that's,
So they've gone in all the streets of Millwood, and then they've gone down there, is that Amherst? Is there going down there?
These are the 3 streets, and again, I'm just using Millwood as an example. These are the 3 streets on the northwest corner of Millwood that feed Parmer Lane. I happen to be right here. I'm sure a lot of you are here, don't think you're subject to no changes in a part of the neighborhood.
Well, in the heart of it, you can't prove that.
Right, that's right.
And can you
I
see
said
that?
too, that there is a bonus for affordable.
what is the street on the, is that Amherst on the right?
On the left, yeah, that's Amherst going down there. And then on the left, I think it's Rialta something.
This is just from the other side.
Rialta is good.
Yes, we did.
Okay, and then this is something else I wanted to show you because these are the same kind of maps. So the pink and the orange are the actual transition zones. But the other thing I thought of, you see there's hot pink that goes deeper into the neighborhood? Well, what they're doing is they're saying, in the hot pink areas now, you get a house and it can be 15 feet from the street instead of 25 feet, so it changes the setbacks. So my kind of interpretation is that's the expansion of the transition zone, because they said every year or two they might expand it more. And the other thing, and so the hot pink is that, the green is the regular, whether you're single family or duplex, now you'll be up to 3 units if you want. The light purple that you see, they've grown up the commercial properties, so the height limit is 90 feet. And at the same time that the height limit on the commercial properties is 90 feet, compatibility standards have been reduced so much that it's only 50 feet, Jim. So you only have to be 50 feet from the back of a lot to go up 90 feet.
Not a lot of room behind your back fence for a building.
And the dark purple there is another kind of single-family zoning they decided on that has 3,500 square foot lots and 65% impervious cover.
I'm going to say, This is a proposal. Okay? I promise you, from the last time the planning commission met, it is going to be much worse when it comes out of the planning commission.
They had hundreds of amendments. It's
The
never
last
started.
time, the last time the transition zones, instead of being 5 lots or 850 feet, they proposed half a mile. Okay? That's the first thing you gotta realize. So this is all in flux. The second thing, and I hope I get this across, there used to be a norm that if you lived in a single-family neighborhood, it would be protected. That norm is being destroyed.
Brandon,
Can't you see it? What?
when you say that they closed.
No, I'm gonna finish it. They need to know, I'm sorry. They need to know that there is no norm left. So anything's possible. Because once your norm is destroyed, you don't live in single-family neighborhoods anymore. Why do you think you're safe if you're not yet in them? That's it.
Trying to say my closer for the.
No,
Just give me a hard time.
So, and that's all, it's Tanglewood Forest, what is that? Oh, no, this is wrong, that's out.
That's
Anyway,
out.
just in case they're doing it in Southwest Boston. Okay, this is something else I thought you'd be interested in, is they greatly expanded alcohol zoning. And so everything in purple now can now have a bar.
By right,
Well, some of them have to get
a conditional permit, that
Yeah.
basically it's a done
Anyway, you
deal.
don't have to get a zoning change anymore to have a bar in all these places.
I would have liked it when it was 25.
So I'm just going to stop for, I'll do this and then I'll stop. So this was a fascinating slide, and Frank can probably address it too, and I don't know, Jim, if you've seen this slide yet. But I saw it, the city showed it on Monday, and it shows they will give away 178,615 bonus units to get 8,841 maybe affordable units. Alleged. That's, and you know, a lot of this is being sold as being affordable housing. So market rate, they even labeled it, it's bonus market rate housing. So the ratio is 5%. Okay.
Okay. I want to do two couple quick things, and we're going to open it up for questions and answers. And comments. Comments are simple. How do you find those maps? The city sometimes makes these maps easy to find, sometimes they make them a little difficult to find. I'm going to walk you through this. If you want to ask me after the meeting to repeat it, I will. The maps that you can actually click on and see your property, it's a very perfunctory, limited description of what that zone is going to be. AustinTexas.gov. At the bottom of that page, that's the home page, there's a little blue bar, about 3/4 of the way down, a little arrow link, click it. It's going to take you to the next page. Over on the right side of it is a list called Top Contents. You want to click something called LDC, or Land Development Code, or apps. That's going to take you to another page. Then you have to scroll, I'm sorry.
Land Development Code,
Land Development Code.
LDC.
On that second page, over on the right, you have some page titles you can choose, and one of them is Land Development Code Drafts. It's over on the right-hand side. Click that. Drafts. The next page you go to, if you go down about 3/4 of the way, you'll see in real fine print, Proposed Zoning Viewer. Click that. Then you're going to get a citywide map that you can enlarge and expand, drag and drop, take it right to your property, click on your property for the proposed zoning for it. It's AustinTexas.gov. Click the blue bar. Next page, right-hand side, Land Development Code Drafts. Click that. On that page, go about 3/4 of the way down. Click Proposed Zoning Viewer. Homes that we built when the neighborhood was built. I'd like to have that information. Also, by the way, one of the things I want to bring up, I get this question all the time, and we really didn't look at it on the maps here. Is everybody know where the Robinson Ranch is? Kind of familiar with that? I see why it's shaking. Okay, well, the very large acreage that has no homes on it, depending upon what part of Parmer you're on, it's either north side of Parmer plus the railroad tracks, or as the road starts to turn north, it's on the east side of Parmer, on the other side of the railroad tracks. That's been in the Robinson Ranch, or the Robinson Ranch has been in the Robinson family for a couple of generations, I think, a long, long time. I have talked to the city staff, I've talked to people in planning, and I say, when you're looking at adding areas to put housing into, why is that never considered? And I've had city staff tell me it's not for sale. Look me in the face and tell me it's not for sale. I've been looking 100 yards away, I've been looking at it for 35 years. The Robinsons do not put a sign on Parmer Lane that says 100 acres for sale. If you want to buy some of their land, they'll sell it to you. All you got to do is ask. That's what Apple did. That's what McNeil High School did. There's a YMCA on that land that was on that land. Those apartments, you know where the existing Apple complex is that's up and running now? Those apartments being built on the other side, I think there's 3 big ones now, the 4th one going up. That's Robinson Ranch land. That land needs to be considered for housing. If they build it up next to Northwood and Preston Oaks, I think it would be appropriate to put a park or a green belt as a buffer. Build the housing, but protect the neighborhood, give them some cushion. Also, let me read I'm going to distill this down, but I think her primary message is from Carmen Yonis-Polito, sits on the Planning Commission and saw her video. Your voice does make a difference. Right now, we have some numbers, some projections, some plans. We have numbers of units allowed and places on the map. We don't have people's stories. Your lived experience, the real life happenings, insight, and knowledge that make true community planning. The Planning Commission does not have the history of these neighborhoods, and it doesn't often know who is living there, who stands to be displaced, how the transit will work, how urban heat islands are affecting people, where localized flooding is getting worse. The qualitative data, that's what you're asking for, is critical to good community planning. To make this code the least destructive to our communities possible, we need to hear from everyone. New faces need to come out. I hear from people, me and Fred, all the time.
Yeah.
We need you. We need you. It's okay if you don't have the jargon in your back pocket. Speak from your lived experience and tell them, the Planning Commission and the council, the staff, what you want to see and what you don't want to see. This hasn't happened. It's not over. Your honest voices, your true concerns, your open and authentic questions to council and commissioners are making a difference.
And what was her name?
Carmen Yonis.
She was the first person in the video, the young woman
Okay.
with the glasses.
Okay, I'm gonna open it up for questions or comments. Like I say, I want you to try to be concise with your questions and comments. Yes, sir.
Do you have a recommendation for how we should act if we go to the Planning Commission meeting on the 26th?
Well, my quick answer to that is be yourself. I find
That's a very dangerous thing. Might not be a good idea, but okay.
within some reasonable limits. Okay. I've spoken to council in various meetings many times, and I really think it helps to maybe make yourself some notes. I speak off the cuff a lot, but I find that I'm more effective when I have a basic outline that I follow, look at the commissioners, speak from the heart, tell them what you think.
What do they need to hear? I mean, we're all going to say we don't like it, right? We're all going to say it breaks up the community. We're going to say that. They're going to hear a million times that.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to be effective?
What's going to be effective is 1 million people telling them they don't like it.
Numbers speak.
Okay?
Numbers speak.
The council is rushing this through. When you rush something you don't really want to listen to, they know it's not popular. They're just hoping people sit at home.
We have some of these meetings coming up, and I'm going to be a little cynical here. They're checkbox meetings. We have meetings.
I do want to say, if you don't want to speak, you can just sign in, yes or no.
Yes,
Or
sir.
you can stay, come down there and you can wear a sticker or something. We'll have some stickers and you can just register you're there and you care. That's valuable. You don't even have to speak if you don't want.
You
Can
know-
we
you know-
email the council?
Let me take another question. I'm gonna try to get around as much. Lady in the back.
What's the best way? I mean, if we can't make the meeting, I mean, email them, write them old-fashioned postcards, call, etc.
Email them and call them.
Okay.
And do both. Now, obviously, the people that have the most interest in hearing from you are your council member and the mayor.
No,
And
my
you're-
council
You're
member.
free to, you're free to send something to a council member from another district, but I can tell you from experience that they usually don't pay much attention to it if it even gets read.
Well, I don't agree with that. I've been working the council and the legislature a long time. They get enough calls, they pay attention. They know it's the tip of the iceberg. I promise you, they get 50 calls, they'll be freaking out.
Can you repeat the contact
What he said, the mayor and the council members.
The mayor and the council members, also the planning commission, any city staff, call and email to your heart's content. And sheer numbers, even if they hear the same thing over and over again, the fact that they're getting it from different people in all areas of town, it can makes a huge difference. Just numbers speak volumes. Yes, sir.
Well, as I look at the map, it looks like some people are going out of the way to really tick off everyone in town. So my question is, what is the alternative to this? I mean, is it do nothing? And I'm asking
Sure.
in a way so that we can be effective in talking. So what's the alternative to massive redevelopment or massive rezoning?
Well, now.
And
this is-
what can we say to them? You know, we want nothing done, we want it to stay the way it is, or...
If you ask all of us up here, you're probably going to get a slightly different answer. And I'll give you mine. And if you want to offer some proof.
No, I want Michael Curry to speak.
Okay. Michael hasn't asked yet. I'm going to try to be brief, and if you guys want to comment, be brief. I see two, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I just want to say, 'cause obviously, our interest is to keep our wealth, to keep our land value, and be able to retire in someone else. So what's the effective way to get that done?
Okay. Well, I have a personal approach, which I won't go into detail. It's called urban hubs or a decentralized city. It's a completely different direction from where we're going now. So it has no chance of happening. But my opinion is, let's go ahead and put something on paper. I want to see it segmented. I want to see a particular target with a hard stop and a reevaluation of where we're at.
Okay.
We take the next step, that has been pre-planned, we adjust it with another hard stop. And I would like to see, this is my opinion, I would like to see the first areas focused on are infill, if you're not familiar with that term, that's vacant area, and underused and unused commercial property. The city, I don't know if you've seen it before, if you travel up and down 35, the city owns the old Home Depot location on the north side, northbound side of 35, I think around the St. John's exit. I haven't looked at it in a while. The city's on that, sitting on it for I don't know how long. That's an unused commercial property that could be used for other things. Anybody else want to chime in? That's one person's thoughts.
The one person, I hesitate to speak, because the one person I do want you to hear from is Jim Duncan, who's the dean of all of this thing. So I don't want to be taking any time that he could be speaking. But since they put me on the spot, let's start just a little bit further back. And that is, and I think that's the perfect question. What are we going to do if we're not going to do this? But where you start at the beginning is, what they've done is they've manufactured some numbers to make the need and the density that they're trying to impose here look like that's actually necessary. And we could spend an hour talking about those numbers when it really isn't. So they've created a false need, and then they're saying, gosh, what are we going to do? We need 405,000 new zoning for 405,000 more units, and so if you have 405,000 new units, you have to find dwelling units, you have to find somewhere. We're sure you're going to be smearing them around everywhere. But we start from the proposition, it dictates, we don't have the time, although I'm glad to speak with anyone, some of these can speak better than me on this, but that's a fake assumption. That's number one fake assumption. Number two, you don't have to do it all today. No one says we need any of 405 or 135,000 houses today. We don't need them today. That's a 10-year projection. And every year, people are going before the planning commission and the city council, and they're getting new 4,000 units were just zoned a couple of weeks ago on Riverside. And so we're creating new housing as we go along every year, and they're not counting that. They're acting as though there's nothing being created, so they're trying to take 10 years of capacity, stick it all here at the front end, and act like that's the last zoning case there's ever going to be, when it isn't. So if we try to make sense out of, well, where is it going to go, we're buying into this assumption that we need these fantastic numbers that our city demographer, the person we hired to tell us what we needed, says are not correct. So where do they go? The city, the comprehensive plan specifies areas they're supposed to go in centers and along corridors, and so that we can add some density along corridors. But they want to come into the neighborhoods, and first they tell us, it's the camel's nose under the tent. At first they tell us it's 2 to 5 lots, when a lot in some neighborhoods it's 8 blocks. It's 11 blocks, not deep, but a total of 8 blocks that they're rezoning for apartments, 8 city blocks in a pretty small neighborhood. So where does it go? The comprehensive plan says where it should go. And the comprehensive plan does not have one word that says anything about transition zones. This was made up. So I can go on forever, but I really do want to go
I think his concept, his belief, and I kind of dovetail about centers, focusing development in centers, and he alludes to essentially the same thing I said, some hard stops. We have a program, we do part of it, we stop, we evaluate. Jim?
Forgive me for my voice, but Jim, I just retired after 60 years as a city planner. We have a tendency of getting into jargon and numbers and weeds, and it's hard for residents to understand, and I apologize up front. And I know a lot of this has been hard. Let me start out by saying that what is before you, and you said this was lost this fall, is one of the biggest urban scams I've ever seen in my entire career. Hope I got your attention. I am an Austin. I first drove into this city, I think before anybody else in this room, that's 1959, 60 years ago, almost to the day, as a student at Red Brown University. All right, from this side here. I discovered planning and my first job in 1961 here in Austin. It gave me a wonderful career, okay? I retired 5 years ago. Actually, I should say one of the reasons I'm living around is that I had retired. Now, in fact, my pulmonologist is right next door. That's why I knew it's meaningless tonight. What is in that 1,366-page document is scary, all right? Now, a lot of this stuff about transition zones and all that, let me tell you this, I know cities. Okay, for 30 years I was a consultant after I left Austin in 85, 86, 87, whatever it was. And was a consultant in almost every major city in this country. And I've been planning director for about a half dozen other cities, mainly in California and Florida and Washington. If this document is adopted, Austin will be the only major city in the entire United States that does not have a zoning district that exclusively allows detached single-family homes. Believe it or not.
Not one neighborhood.
Not one major city.
Not one neighborhood in Austin will have.
That's right. Well, no, it's not in the code, so it's not permitted. All right? If you look at the code, their districts go from a 5,000 square foot lot to an RR 1 acre lot. And those acre lots are out in the hills, okay? So it's not really, they're not farms, they're ranches. I've never seen that before, all right? And if you pick up on some of the things were said here, every lot, no matter where you are, even on the transition, you can build a duplex and a third unit on the back of ADU. Okay, so don't focus on just being 2 blocks from Jollyville or 2 blocks from Parmer. This whole thing is a friggin' mess. And it has been put on you by a coalition of 3 rather strange special interest groups. All right? We've got a lot of young millennials who are looking for a cause, and they've read about what Minneapolis did. Minneapolis eliminated single-family homes. And incidentally, Minneapolis and Austin are not compared. Minneapolis is half our size, but it's only 10% of the metro area. All of the single-family suburbs are out in Edina or Coon Rapid or something else. Austin is different. We constitute 50% of our metro area. It's more than any other major city in the country. And that was done in the early 80s when we wanted to protect our flanks. And through annexation, through utility districts, and through municipal agreements, we now a lot of people who live in some of the villages, like Anderson Mill, and they wish they had, but we are a city of suburbs, and that coalition doesn't like the suburbs. The other 2 groups there are minorities who are frustrated because they see the detached single family, a home with a garage and a backyard, as an economic
direction they were going. And he actually told them solutions, like you were talking about, in ways they could bring the community together for consensus to work this out. And he listened to the word.
I'm going to take a question off this side. Yes, sir.
It occurred to me on the west side east side of Parmer Lane, there are a load of commercial developments, all virtually single story. Are they included as part of redevelopment? Because why don't they push that to be redeveloped? Like they've done on Burnett Road, shops underneath,
Absolutely.
Apartments above.
I have focused my attention, I think, most of the stuff that I'm going to let Barbara chime in if she has
That's a really good question, because Austin has a lot of underused commercial property. The whole focus is redevelopment within neighborhoods of this plan. They're even capping how many apartments you can put on the corridors, so that we can put maybe 15 or 20 units per acre less on the corridors. So they're clamping down on what can be put in those places. There's not really a lot about developing any kind of commercial zone for residential. We very much encourage residential and commercial. What it's really focusing on is disruption of existing communities.
Well, and again, that's something that I believe in, and I stated that we look at underused or unutilized commercial property. Dale?
Has anybody brought up that this to me sounds like a backdoor eminent domain situation?
Yeah.
Attorneys?
Backdoor what?
Eminent domain.
Situation.
No, they're not coming out and saying we're taking your property, but they're doing it by zoning. Am I seeing this wrong, or is it?
Well, what I don't know that they're taking the property per se, but I will tell you what they're doing. They're rezoning your property without asking you if you want it rezoned, and even if you protest that you don't want it rezoned, they're rezoning it anyway. And that's a pretty unprecedented type of approach. What we're used to is someone owns or buys property and they want to rezone it to some use, and the community either likes it or they don't like it, but you go and you weigh in. But that's someone saying, this is my property, hey, this is what I'd like to do with it. And so we have this process for a hearing, the community gets involved, the planning commission votes, the city votes, the staff does a report on it. Well, this makes sense or it doesn't make sense. But this is different. This is the city coming in saying, we're rezoning all this property. We're rezoning you didn't ask to have it rezoned. Oh, well, we don't care. We're rezoning it.
Well,
So-
if they're rezoning it and they're making you do something with it, or you're not able to sell it in the condition or zoning it's in or has been in, like it says in the thing, that you have to sell it, you're probably gonna have to sell it to an investor, because a single home buyer is not gonna buy it when it's already out of code.
Well,
So they're really laying waste to your property as far, not while you own it maybe, but as soon as you try to get rid of it.
Well,
it's gonna, you'll be selling something different than what you bought. That's true. And how that effect works, I'll be honest, I don't know. But I do know they're selling something, they're changing the property that you bought and you're selling it with a different zoning than it had. Some of the things that they were changing is you can still continue to live in your single-family house. And you can still, now, because of so much pressure put on them, they went, okay, yeah, you can still live there and you can still remodel it. And if you tear it down and you can build it back, they've changed that. But if there was a vacant lot in your neighborhood today and they pass this, no one can build a single-family home on that lot if it's in a transition zone.
well, and
I have a question. If your neighborhood has deed restrictions,
I'm glad you brought that up.
so I have multiple questions that I don't think we've answered yet.
I'm confident of that.
If you have deed restrictions, what do deed restrictions from this? That's one question. Second, there's the cynics who will say that, oh, but this is a great thing for you because then you can sell your home for a lot of money and get out and go move somewhere else. Well, one, I don't want to move anywhere.
A lot of people don't.
Exactly.
I got both of the
And
questions.
two, I mean, I don't think that's gonna be true because you'll be selling it to some greedy person who's gonna make a lot of money off of you.
Okay, I got both
Those are
questions.
in taxes. What is that gonna do?
Okay, I got 3 questions, okay?
Yes.
Deed restrictions. Yes, if you have deed restrictions, they will trump the zoning.
For how
But-
long?
Well, just let me finish, man. You gotta let me finish. Because the answer to that question is unknowable, because you didn't let me finish. And you'll see what I mean, it depends on your deed restrictions. And what I was gonna tell you is the problem with deed restrictions, the reason we went to zoning 100 years ago, is they're very expensive to enforce.
That's the problem.
They're often not done well, or they've been waived. So you don't have them anymore in many neighborhoods because they haven't enforced them. Deed restrictions are very expensive to enforce. You want to spend $50,000 enforcing the deed restrictions next year? Not exactly. That's why we went to zoning. Okay? Does that make sense?
And you can be countersued.
Well, we don't need to go into all that. Okay, the second thing is, you talked about taxes. Here's the issue with taxes. We'll just cut to the chase. You can only build one home on your property. Your property is valued to the value of having 1 unit. If you can build 8 units on it, your property is worth the value of being able to build 8 units on it. So it's worth more. Okay, and if it's worth more, even though you're sitting there with 1 home on it, your taxes are going up. That's the gist of it, okay? That's why more entitlements means greater value, means your taxes are going up, okay? All things being equal, it isn't always the case, blah, blah, blah. Now about your question on zoning, because this is very, very important about the cash out problem. The reason we had zoning in the first place is so your neighbor couldn't sell you out. Remember, no zoning, you had a single-family neighborhood, somebody decides they want to build a factory, make a lot of money, they sell their property for factory, your life is ruined, they go out and they leave and they're wealthy. So that's what we did, we had zoning. You couldn't sell your neighbor out. Okay? Well, under this, your neighbor now has an entitlement to 6 units. So are they going to sell you out or not? Well, that's what you're going to have to worry about.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's a question that I have a lot. And favor the attorney, but the problem with deed restrictions that is an absolute barrier for most people is the legal cost to try and enforce them. It can be enormous. And as soon as people realize, hey, I don't like what my neighbor's doing, and I have deed restrictions in this neighborhood, whip out your wallet and expect to spend a ton of money on attorneys trying to enforce that And one of the things that I got some very current information on, and this is just talk, but it comes from credible sources, this property tax issue. Carmen, the lady that I read her comment on, she's in the video. She has herself on her own contacted some people at the appraisal district, and she got an obvious answer. Well, for the comps, you know, when your property's valued, it's your house, and what's it worth compared to half a dozen others that are like it. Well, apparently, the appraisal district, they're not going to include your house in comps with a sixplex or a fourplex. But that's not the problem. The problem is, and if you watch your property taxes, you notice this big shift. I'm going to say it was about 4 or 5 years ago. They took a high percentage of your appraisal is the structure and the land. They call it improvement, such a house. They shifted a significant portion of your total appraisal from the structure to the ground. Now, the ground is being rezoned. So the question is this property going to be rezoned with the structure or the ground? And the indications are it's going to be rezoned by what can be built on it, even though you've got a single family home on it. So the property, the ground value is going to soar.
And I want to tell you one thing about it, because this isn't very nice, but you have to know. The council and the city is putting tremendous pressure on the appraisal district to keep quiet about this. I'm just telling you. Because they don't want you to realize that your property values are going up. But think about it. You have a single family lot, you can build a home on it. And now somebody can build 8 units on it. And the person next to you builds 8 units, and it's now, this complex is $3 million next to your house. You really think the value of your property is the same? I mean, you don't have to be a tax appraiser to understand it. It's obvious your taxes are going to go up. But there's a lot of pressure to keep that conversation down, because I think they know it'll rile you up.
This is one of those things I mentioned early on about, these are the things you don't hear about. There's very little discussion on that. I'm going to take a shift back over this side, Karen.
Okay, I was gonna ask, and probably Fred, or are you in this room?
Yes.
Yeah, Michael is.
Well, I was just curious, impervious cover. So now you have a house that's flooding because you've got more impervious cover around you. I know the city looks at, they have somebody that checks the box on drainage and stuff. Is that engineer liable? No.
Not really.
Because we had an issue where some property was developed, and they put the retention pond uphill. And I told the guys that I've never seen water run uphill, but you're the engineer. And I said,
Really?
your ass is the one I'm gonna sue when my property starts flooding.
Well,
But
Barbara, why don't you tell her about the difference in the reality of impervious cover and where regulations we're going to go? No, really, they need to know what the reality of impervious cover is in our neighborhood and where we're going.
Okay, so I've met with the city quite a few times because I have the #2 most flood prone neighborhood in Austin. And one thing the city will tell you over and over with a straight face is impervious cover has nothing to do with flooding. So they tell you that. And then they told us if we average it, we're just supposed to average it over the whole city. So even if you're in a floodplain and we're increasing yours, as long as the city averages, it's okay.
Well,
Okay, but let's get to the lots. Okay, I'll do it.
Okay.
Average lot around here in at least the central city is what, 20 or 25% impervious cover?
Yes,
And they go up to what now?
40,
Okay, and what can they go up to in the transition zone?
60.
6, there you go.
and I wish I had made a note as to where this information came from, but it was a credible study. It was an audit done. You know that the floodplain maps are being revised.
Yep.
The floodplain maps we have right now are grossly out of date. Everybody knows that. The floodplains are going to be significantly enlarged. And somebody just a couple of weeks ago looked at these maps against the new floodplain. So you've got a change in the zoning and change in the floodplain maps. And the total number of structures that will be, homes that will be within the floodplain with this zoning and the new maps the number of units will increase by 80%. You're almost going to double the number of homes that are going to be in the floodplain when these two things happen. Joanne, and I'm going to come back on this side. I got you next.
Okay, well, you know that Northwood went through.
Speak.
I'm sorry.
Or I'll repeat it.
It's okay. Our neighborhood is Northwood, and we went through pure hell fighting the city council for the apartments. Our understanding is our councilwoman is not in favor of this project. I don't know if that's true. I don't believe anything that comes
I
from
don't want to act as a
anybody's.
spokesman for her, but I did communicate with her, and I know she has some serious concerns about
Okay,
this
so
revision.
my question is, number one, is this going to be a council vote only to pass? Because if that's the case, we might as well just kiss it goodbye, because they do whatever they want to do anymore. Number two, why isn't it being put to us as voters? Because if something affects us this much, it should be a vote for the city to vote. I know the council will never go for that because it won't pass.
Well, it's if you remember last November's ballot, we had a couple of citizen-driven ballot items.
Right.
Proposition J was one of them, which
Yeah.
would have allowed you to vote on this.
That's the whole point.
This
That's
is the guy that wrote it. This is the guy that wrote it. This is the guy that collected more signatures for the petition to get it on the ballot than anybody in the city wants.
Exactly, exactly.
It failed. It narrowly failed, and to answer your question as directly as possible, you're not going to get a chance to vote on this. Now, the planning commission and the city council have an opportunity to change this. I don't want you to throw in the towel.
No,
and
I'm
say
not
this is
throwing the
over.
towel,
But the vote ultimately rests.
But what I'm
with the
saying is
council.
that we literally stood up there for 3.5 years,
I know.
screaming and yelling, not screaming and yelling, but making our points. And at
Well,
the
I think
end,
I helped you. We screamed
yes,
together
we
a couple
did scream
times.
together. But my thing is that you, after a point in time, you just sat up there and they had these glazed faces on with no expression, and you knew darn right well what they were going to say, yep, we hear you, but we don't care. I mean, that's basically on everybody's face, yeah. So I don't know what, I want to fight this, but we need a good thing to go after, I guess.
Yes, sir.
So the other gentleman mentioned that there is special interest groups, and it is such a serious impact on the city of Austin. Should there be a referendum? Should we be able to go to higher levels of government, the Senate?
Well,
Congress gonna say, like, look what they're doing in Austin. Hey, look what's happening downtown with the city.
Fred and I are talking about that.
The governor is telling the mayor what to do. Can we?
You know, let's just, I don't want to let any cat out of the bag because there's no cat to let out. But let's just take it one step at a time. Let's see what we can do to get the council, the planning commission to shape this as best they can. And if there are other options, you know, maybe we go down that road.
Wait,
Okay.
I just want to follow.
Okay, I'll get you next, I promise.
I'm just really concerned, hypothetically, like, we're talking timeline, if they're go in December and they vote this through without any of our voices, what's the timeline look like?
Patient, but I think essentially it's effective immediately.
No,
Is
it's unclear, okay? The first reading, they're supposed to read, is December 12th. It's really rushed. I mean, this product isn't ready even if you like it, okay? They have to go to third reading to prove it, and that's 2/3 or 3/4 vote for third reading.
I think it's a supermajority of
I mean,
2/3.
2/3.
Yeah, I think it's 9.
So the reason we say December 12th is it's possible they could do it December 12th, but it's not likely. But I have to tell you, when you're looking at your situation with that apartment, and you're just thinking about your neighborhood, there are neighborhoods all over this city
No, I'm well
that
aware
are
of that.
unhappy. And if you want to direct your attention, your council member needs to get a little bit of your attention, but she's basically with you. You need to direct your attention to the west of here, to District 8, 6, and the mayor.
Who's District 6? Flanagan? Oh, dear God, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to get political here.
Well, he wants to be mayor, so.
We're going to stop that.
Exactly.
Let's stop that right now. Yes, ma'am.
So I do not live in the city of Austin. I live in the ETJ, and I'm a little further out than you. My house is actually in Parmer. When I look at those maps that are proposed, it says nothing for my neighborhood, right? I'm in Rattan Creek, right there at Big Hill and Parmer. So what do? I'm not in the city. I'm in HUD. I'm in Travis County, but just barely.
There's some gray areas there.
Well, do you have interim zoning? They're changing some of the interim zoning. You have it.
I have no idea.
We can look at,
I see nothing when I look at the maps, it's just white and gray. It doesn't say there's anything proposed. Obviously, there probably is, right? Because that would fall in the transition zone. So,
Go ahead.
If I just got a short one, is there any chance of getting that video we just saw on television?
We have weeks up on it. I don't know if we can get you a hard copy.
No, I'm talking about airing it on PBS for people to see.
You'll have to talk to the.
It's on YouTube.
But as far as like the public, our public broadcast station here are a fantastic group of people. I interact with them sparingly, and there's big gaps in time, but they've always been extraordinarily helpful and cooperative and willing to listen. This is a provocative film. I don't know if we're willing to take that on, but you could always ask. Francois back in the back, and I'm going to kind of move up front back over there.
So, thank you. So, in full disclosure, I'm with Gracie Woods Neighborhood Association. My name is Francois Luca, and I'm on the Parks Board for District 7. And so I had a lot of questions too, and our neighborhood is not very happy with this either, because all of us are in the transition zone as well. We met with Louisa, Leslie's aide on Tuesday.
Councilmember Poole, if you don't know that.
There is a meeting on Monday, the 14th, and I sent you the information just a minute ago.
I'm going to cover that in my meeting.
Okay. But we asked about exactly what you asked. What do? Email. Call, yes, but email because it becomes public record.
No, they're wrong. Call.
Well, call too,
I don't
yes.
care what they say. Call.
But the other thing is that we were advised to be as specific as possible of everything that was wrong. So for example, we have flooding, so we need to know exactly which streets have flooding, which areas are prone. We have canopy problems, tree problems. We have very beautiful trees, and this plan will destroy much of our canopy. So talk about that. Schools, talk about those issues. Anything that's specific to your area, put it in writing, call, tell them about it, and let's fight it.
If I can add to the air canopy, you delete the canopy, you deal with air quality as well.
Yes, ma'am.
This is a nice gathering, but are there other groups like this meeting around the city?
Yes, ma'am, there are. We all need to get out, make sure your voice is heard. We're worried about getting other people's voices out. But there are a lot of unhappy people in the city.
Our concerns are shared citywide, and there are people holding meetings like this, various civic organizations. I just happen to be one of those radicals that likes to do it myself. Over there again.
You know, leaving aside the question of our private property, I'm very concerned about the infrastructure. Austin has been working on that for years, and now we're talking about the lack of infrastructure on steroids. Is what I've heard.
okay, I have a response to that. And in the other PowerPoint, I can show you a direct quote. Some of the council members were asking the mayor, does it really make sense for us to do this because of the state of our infrastructure? And he said, no, let's rezone everything. And then when it gets to the site plan stage, we can look at the infrastructure.
Yes.
I've never heard,
Sounds like the homeless.
I'm gonna
Let them all go.
It's bad.
I'm gonna offer you a real world example there. We're gonna build a soccer stadium for 20,000 spectators, and no traffic plan is, management plan is in place. Now, if you look at the order in which various considerations and decisions are made on a project of any size in this town, Washington. Now, the traffic impact analysis, called the TIA, is a part of anything where there's a given level of traffic on the road or higher. And it comes it is not early in most of those processes. But the process can be altered based upon the realities that we're looking at. And to this day, there is not a traffic plan in place for that soccer stadium. And I saw something, I think it was in the Statesman, they were projecting they're going to have this traffic plan in place sometime mid next year. Now they're looking at late in the year. It's just kind of crazy that when you have something that has that kind of an impact, that you wait that long to even decide how you're going to handle the traffic. Yes, sir.
So as far as property taxes, if this were to go through, regardless of what they assess your land and improvement at, aren't you still protected under the 10% cap as far as how much they can raise your taxes per year?
Yeah, all those laws still apply.
They do?
Sure.
Okay.
They do, and just know that in situations where the cap protects you, the amount is over the cap, they put it in the bank. I think a lot of people aren't aware of that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've seen this before, and we're in that stage right now. I've lived here for 35 years, and I've seen the taxes. There was 1 or 2 years when the economy was flat, and the savings and loan crisis, where my property appraisal did go up. Every year it's gone up. And as time has gone along, the increases have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, both by percentage and dollar amount. And there is a provision that, let's say you're protected under the 10% cap, but if you weren't protected, your tax bill would be higher. The amount that's over your 10% cap, they just put it in the bank. Let's say the following year, you only had a 4% increase, but there was a leftover amount from last year that they couldn't hit you with. They add that right back in. So you can build, you can have so much banked that if your property value was flat for the next 5 years, you could see an increase in tax bill because they're just pulling out of that. I call it in the bank account. That amount that they couldn't tax you because of the 10% cap 5 years before until you work that all. It's just a revolving door that once it starts, it's almost impossible to stop.
Yeah, can I close? You promised me I could leave at 8:30 and I'm tired.
Okay.
And I have a daughter.
I will let you make the comments now. Fred's daughter's in town, and
Yes, I am.
I twisted his arm to leave. So
Thank you all for coming. No, really, thank you. Here's what this is all about. People work hard for their home, for their neighborhood. They put in a lot of sweat. And home is the biggest asset most of us will ever own. And the council is just acting like none of that really matters. And so you need to show up. And I promise you, it matters. I've been in a lot of legislative fights.
Yes, it does.
You show up, it matters. If you show up and tell them you're unhappy, and you make sure your neighbors come, they'll hear. If y'all come from here, we'll get people in other parts of this city to come out, because they're just waking up too. So that's the first thing. Show up on October 26th at the Planning Commission. The second thing is realize the city's not doing this right. In the mid-'80s, there was a dispute about the Land Development Code, and they got different parties and interest stakeholders together. Michael Curry was part of it. And they put people in a room and they worked it out. Okay, something reasonable. There's no stakeholder process. Michael Curry isn't invited, Barbara MacArthur isn't invited, I'm not invited, Jim Duncan. They have their agenda and they're going to cram it down us. And that means you got to show up so that we slow this process down and demand that it be deliberative. Okay? That there's actually give and take. Okay? So yes, whoever said, when you show up, they're going to be looking at their phone, not listening to you. You're right. That isn't how you legislate. But you have to show up so that we get their attention so that we can be in a room to actually get some leverage. Because right now, there's no negotiation going on at all. Okay? They're not listening. And then, the last thing, I really do want you to know this, because you really need to know, there really is an assault on single-family neighborhoods. Okay? A lot of people at the city and other people go around and say they're obsolete. Some people say they're racist, seriously. Although it's hard for me to understand because in East Austin, people of color have single-family homes and they rather like them, but I guess they're racist too. But so this is an assault on the single-family neighborhoods, and they dress it up as everything, sprawl and environment. They know it's not popular, but they're going to do it unless you make sure they know it's going to be hell to pay. Okay, it's your home. I'm sorry, Sharon, you're going to have to wait.
I'm waiting patiently.
I'll pick you up.
He'll pick you up. So the other thing is the lack of respect for the public and your rights is mind-blowing. If you have your property rezoned, one property now, they are supposed to give you notice, people within 200, 500 feet notice, a sign's put up, you have a hearing, you have something called protest rights, which means that if you object, and 20% of the owners, either the owner objects their own property or 20% of the people around, it takes a supermajority vote. 9 votes to rezone your property. That's your protection, right? You live in a single-family neighborhood, yeah, they can rezone it, but it takes 9 votes, not 6. They're not giving you notice. They say they don't have to. And they say you don't have protest rights. There's going to be a fight about that. And I suggest when things, you'll hear about it pretty soon, that you file your protest. And all it is a little form, it'll be on our website. And you say, I don't want you to rezone my property, I have protest rights. And frankly, it'll be a big mess. You don't even know about the big mess, it'll be a lawsuit, lots of stuff. But literally, if they rezone your property, one piece of property, and you objected, it would take 9 votes. And they're going to say they can rezone the entire city. It doesn't take 9 votes. And I'll spare you the legal theory, but I'll tell you this, they have not one case that supports their position. Because there's no case in Texas on the matter. But I just want you to know, they're not even going to tell you that you're a problem. And they're not going to recognize your protest rights. So you're going to have to protest, and you're going to have to file your own protest form. So anyway, thank you for coming. I really enjoyed it. And do you need me to stay, or does Ed answer your question? Go ahead, Sharon.
This is easy.
Oh.
Email your city council. I mean, particularly district and the number 6 at austin.texas.org. That's who you need to go after. That's Jimmy Flanagan's District 6. He has turned his back on the whole city. He's going to go with Mayor Adler. Austin District number 6, one word, at austin.texas.gov. Flood him with emails and calls,
And
please.
District 7, the majority of people in here are District 7 people. And as hard as some things are to find
But you've already
those-
got District 7 council member on your side. I'm telling you, the ones that aren't on your side, you need to be emailed.
I'm not a spokesman for her, but I understand her that she's concerned about this. Don't let that concern die.
Yeah,
Right. Just because she says I have problems with this and I want to see some changes, we got her vote. It's covered.
Just make sure she knows
You
she
can
can
call,
call.
you can call and you can say, I have problems and I want answers. So that just because someone says I have an issue with this and that, don't relax. Never let your guard down. Keep the calls coming in.
Okay.
And
Fred had just said, once rezoned, file the form to protest. How do we know? Is that just when this whole thing passes?
let me get back to you on that with specifics rather than generalities. I always hate to suggest something to somebody that's as specific as that, this form, this place, this time, and get it wrong, because you're investing your time in doing that, and I don't want you wasting your time. So I'll try to periodically here in the near future get a few things up on Nextdoor and try to get as much out as I can about this form, file at this place, you can download it here, that kind of stuff. One more.
Would it be worthwhile at all to do something like contacting the AV investigative team that they do the series of
yourself. I mean, it never hurts to ask. I'll always say, hey, do you want to do a story on this? Do you think this is an issue? A lot of people in the neighborhood are kind of fired up about this. Would you like to talk to us? It never hurts.
Can I say one last thing?
Yes, sir. If you want to get some meetings, I want to give you some information on meetings coming up where you can be a voice. So don't leave yet unless you have to.
I know everyone's tired and wants to go home, and I feel the same way. I just want to say this: don't lose heart on this.
Don't.
I don't know if we're going to win or we're going to lose, but there's honor in speaking up. There's honor in doing the right thing. There's honor in participating in democracy. There's honor in working for your neighborhood. You're not just working for your neighborhood now. You're trying to keep your neighborhood together for the next generation. Someone worked to make your neighborhood a great place to live before you ever moved there. We're just passing through. We have to do our share to make sure other people get to raise their kids there and get to have a good life there. So I don't know if it'll work or not. I think it will work, frankly. But there's honor in persisting, in participating, in standing up, and you'll never regret it, and you'll never second guess. That's all I'm saying.
Thanks. I'll close by giving you a few dates, locations, times of things that are coming up. As a result of the enormous number of contacts that have been made with the city, we've had a last-minute addition to the meetings where you can participate. It's a direct result of people saying, we're not having enough opportunity to voice our opinion. On the 14th, now I know this is real short notice, but that's because this meeting just popped up on the radar. They just scheduled this. The 14th, 6 to 9 p.m., City Hall. That's no fun. They're having a land development code workshop. They're inviting people from neighborhoods all across the city to come and break up, meet with the city staff, planning commission members, whoever they can round up from the city to be there into work groups. It's not going to be some big meeting where they talk to you and you ask questions. It's not going to be like this. They'll divide people up based on, we got some people from this part of town, this part of town, this part of town. We're going to put them with a staff member and we're going to talk about this code. It's coming up on the 14th. Sure. This is down at City Hall. City Hall, the 14th, 6 to 9 p.m., and they're referring it to as the Land Development Code Workshop. If you go to the city website, remember that little rundown I gave you, austin.texas.gov, Land Development Code, that's sequence there to get to various pages. This meeting may be listed there. It's so new, I don't know if they've got it up on the website, but that's a place where you may be able to click a link and register to go. By now, I'm not sure how you even notify them that you want to attend other than just show up. But check that out. Here's one I found, to be quite honest with you, a little bit amusing. The city is touting, where you can set an appointment with a staff member, a one-on-one with staff member. Okay, I checked into that. The city council districts, when we drew the lines, I was very involved in helping draw the lines for the districts in 2012. There were slightly over 8,000 people in City Council District 7 and approximately 8,000 City Council 6, District 6. I'm running out of voice. For 8,000 people, this appointment schedule that you're allowed to apply for one day, the 24th at Lamar Middle School, 3 appointments are available. That's all they set aside at 5:36, 37. Now, I'm going to assume that they're going to bring in maybe 5. I think 10 would be not going to happen. Let's say they send 5 city staffers down to Lamar Middle School on the 24th and sit there for these 3 slots. That's 15 appointments for 8,000 people. You can take that for whatever you think it's worth. Now, Fred alluded to the biggest opportunity we have to be heard, and it requires numbers. I can't say that enough. I've led so many groups down to City Hall, and I don't care if you speak or if you're nervous about speaking. I hope you're not, and you do. When an agenda item comes up, you can go out in the lobby and you can register for or against whatever it is they're going to discuss. Do that. But nothing makes more of an impression than a large group of people. I get my folks, I'll say, let's get there early and sit as a block in chambers or wherever the meeting is. And when that agenda item, that is the 26th. I'm going to give you a little more detail on that. We set as a block, and when the agenda item is called, stand up. Rather than being scattered all across the chambers of the meeting room, if 150 people stand up, you're occupying half that council chamber. And those council members looking at their phone do this. Wow. Nothing counts like numbers. Now, it's this 26th, that's a Saturday, 26th of October, all these dates are October. It's supposed to start at 9 a.m. at City Hall. This is a planning commission saying we want to hear from you. I can guarantee you this. I'll bet my bank account on it. You want to speak in a reasonably short amount of time after you get there, you better be there an hour or two before, as soon as they open City Hall doors, or at least a half hour, an hour before the meeting starts, because the line's going to form. And you sign up to speak, and normally, in something like this where it's not a yes or no vote, just public input, they just take them in the order in which people signed up. And I've signed up an hour before a city council meeting started at 10 a.m. that morning. And I've spoken at 2 a.m. the next morning. And I've sat there that long because I believed it was worth it. So please come down on the 26th. Any time is fine. If you can't make it early, just make it. Sign up to speak, stay if you can. Just numbers speak volumes, and I know Fred's got a rally plan for the 26th. That is, well, if you'll take just a moment to tell us what you know about that. The last thing I want to mention is, even though the city council will probably not take this up until into December, after the planning commission has a chance to provide feedback, there's plenty of chances for, as Michael said, this is not over. There's chances to change this. But the city council has typically 2 regular meetings per month. Go down and listen. Watch the agendas. Look at, it's on the city website. Go to the city council meetings. Pull up the agenda for the one day regular meeting coming up on the 17th and the 31st. Familiarize yourself with what's on there. The little items that add up, that make a difference in your life. Kind of get to know how the council works, what's on their agenda, how they describe things, because when they do put this on the agenda in December, you might have some kind of idea of how these things work. Just kind of familiarize yourself with it. And on the rally on the 26th.
So we have right outside the front door, the chambers until noon. It's reserved to people from the community, not from other people will be there. I encourage lots and lots of people, because nothing speaks like lots and lots of people. You know, they took it down in the fall because they did polling that said that they would lose the election if they passed it. And so they really didn't mean to take it down. They just wanted to get reelected. And now it's back, and they wanted to move very, very quickly. But they're all subject to a lot of people show up and say, I'm not happy.
What I wanted to ask you guys while you were talking, I thought of this. Mayor Adler has a unique talent of spinning everything around to make the public think that everything that they are doing God has showered upon them. The thing with the homeless, we all witnessed how he flipped the Abbott thing. I really wish that, and I pray that when that rally is, that you get in front of every TV camera and talk about what this really is, because I think these people have blinders on. They look at the news, they see Adler sitting there going, everybody's for this. And they just think, oh yeah, he's right. And that's what bothers me, because he lies so much.
Cameras will be there, I guarantee you.
But I mean, you guys need to...
They come out,
yes.
They come out of the woodwork.
But you have to speak, because I don't think anybody knows about you guys. I mean, they do, but they don't. Let's put it that way.
Well, we are almost on schedule. I didn't think that was going to be possible. It has been a pleasure, my privilege to have you here tonight. I want to assure you that with all the sincerity I can possibly muster up, you you took time out of your evening, out of your lives, to come down here and talk about, and listen to, and find out a little bit about what this is about. I can't thank you enough. We got some great people with us. Michael, Barbara, Jim was here. Jim has some health issues, and I knew he was. I was so pleasantly surprised he was going to make it. He couldn't stay long. Fred, Parmer wanted to be here. These are all people. I kind of count myself in that same group who care, who watch what the city does, and we want you to watch what the city does and to participate to the extent that you can. And I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you.